Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of ABC News Live. I'm Whit Johnson. It is special because we are following this total lunar eclipse. It is a once-in-a-century moment. That's because the moon is expected to turn a red-orange color for approximately 1 hour and 42 minutes in totality. Now, it's an incredible scene that we're going to see. We've got cameras and crews and feeds coming in from around the globe. There's only one major problem with all of this, and that's that you can't see it in the United States because it's daylight out across the country. But this is where digital news comes into play because we can bring you all these feeds and images from different places. So we'll get to all of those spots and all those images. First, though, let's take a look at what makes today so special.
Into just the right place, right between the sun and the moon. That forces the sun's rays to bend around Earth. Blue rays get filtered out, and the only ones that reach all the way to the moon are red, hence the nickname Blood Moon. It's captivated mere mortals all the way back to Christopher Columbus, who used a correctly predicted lunar eclipse to convince natives to feed his weary crew. And right now, it's lighting up the sky from Australia to South America.
All right, so again, we want to bring in some of these images that we're seeing from around the globe. First, let's go to Hong Kong. Our correspondent Matt Gutman is there live. And Matt, we understand that some people are gathering out there. It is nighttime where you are and people are watching this. What can you see? What are people doing?
3:32 in the morning, and we went to the museum here, and we asked, are you guys going to hold an event or anything? And they said, nah, nobody's going to be up. Who's going to watch it at that time? Check it out. Take a look to your left, all these amateur astronomers, and to your right, everybody's got their cameras, they're poised. Our camera only has a small lens, but I want you to see my man Huey's lens. He's got basically it's a telescope with what's called a star tracker over there, but he calls it a
equatorial mount.
An equatorial mount. And we can't see the moon. So it was a full moon about half an hour, 40 minutes ago, and now it has basically disappeared. We don't see that fantastic red that we had hoped because there is a tremendous amount of light pollution in Hong Kong and a little bit of clouds in the sky, but not too many. But still, the folks here are impressed. And through the cameras here, you can actually see the redness of the moon. It's pretty exciting. And hopefully over the next hour and maybe 39 minutes that are left, we will be able to see some of that red. But a pretty exciting moment here. Everybody's also taking pictures of us as we're taking pictures of them. You see the folks with binoculars. This is actually a student group with, hey guys, this is Valerie. She's part of the Astrolist. She just graduated high school like last month, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Honestly, this is my first time doing this, and compared to that, this is a pretty tiny camera. But honestly, I think this experience will make me get even more into photography than I ever was.
Cool. All right, Valerie's excited about photography. We have Yama, we have Jane over there. What do you guys think?
Well, it's kind of expected because it's, Hong Kong weather, humid
weather.
And tropical area, so
Yeah.
clouds, yeah.
You heard it. You heard it from Jane. Humid, tropical area, clouds. Still pretty cool. I mean, it was a full moon, and because the moon is full, it is so illuminated and so distinct in the sky. And then it is pretty remarkable to see the entirety of it slowly disappear. And we did see with that telltale, diamond ring kind of thing, just at the very end as the penumbra goes to the Umbra, which is pretty cool for me to see, having seen the solar eclipse. But yeah, it's still pretty exciting, and I was surprised. There were a couple of drunks lying on the benches over there, but I was still very pleasantly surprised at the sheer number of people who are out here trying to take this in. So I'm also curious to hear what we've got going elsewhere in the world, and I know you guys have a whole roster of folks lined up, so I'm looking forward to that. I'll send it back to you, Whit.
Absolutely, Matt. Hang with us. By the way, I want to tell our viewers we are bringing you a live image right now. This, again, I believe at this moment, it's still a partial lunar eclipse, so you're taking a look at the moon there, but you can see that orange reddish glow. It's already starting to take shape. Unfortunately, with Matt Gutman in Hong Kong there, the weather, the light pollution, as they call it, obviously a big issue, and that's something that we're going to be watching around the globe. But the good news, again, this is a once-in-a-century total lunar eclipse because it's lasting in totality for about an hour and 42 minutes. So this isn't one of those passing moments where it's a couple minutes long and then it's gone. We have time. So hopefully Matt and the crew there in Hong Kong, the clouds will clear out and they'll get a better image of that. We do want to go to Cairo, Egypt. Rhonda Ali, our reporter out there on the ground, they are watching this. And Rhonda, I understand that you're out right near the pyramids. What a great place to experience this celestial event. What are you seeing?
It is great indeed. Behind us is the pyramid, and in front of us we're seeing the longest lunar eclipse in our century, and it's slowly turning into red here. We're having our share of pollution, but we can still see changing color. And with me here as well, I found all the way from San Antonio, Texas, looking at the pyramids, but also looking at the lunar eclipse tonight, is Miguel and Sarah.
Hello, hello. Back to all my San Antonio folks.
How does it feel to be here? You didn't only see the pyramids, but also a big phenomenon.
It's beautiful. You know, I love Cairo, all the Egyptian people, here with my beautiful wife, Sarah. Just looking at this eclipse, it's beautiful, beautiful.
Have you been sending photos back home? They didn't get to see it?
Yes, I've been sending them to all my friends. Just pictures and pictures, you know, of everything here. You know, I want more people to come down here. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's very exciting. Thank you, guys.
All right, and Rhonda, can I ask you if you could ask your guests there to see, have they ever seen an eclipse before, whether it's a lunar eclipse, whether it was a solar eclipse, or is this their first eclipse experience?
Is this your first eclipse experience, lunar or solar?
Yes, it is actually. It is. Looks like a giant tangerine. I know that's a thing that we say down in Texas, you know. Very beautiful. A little bit colder than Texas is right now.
That's good. That's good.
All right, Rhonda Ali for us in Cairo. What a beautiful place to witness this event in front of the pyramids there. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you depending on how the broadcast plays out, but we want to bring in some of our scientists who are watching this with us who can help explain what we're seeing and the significance of this event. First, let's go to Dr. Lucienne Wakowicz, who is an astronomer at the Adler Planetarium in Chicago. Doctor, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We are, just so our viewers know, and so you know, we have you right now in a double box side by side with what we are seeing, this lunar eclipse playing out. What can you tell us about the position that this eclipse is in right now? It's still in the partial phase, right?
Yes, it should be still in the partial phase. Of course, this is a very long-lasting event, as you've pointed out. So it's really something that I think is special in the sense that you can take your time to enjoy it as opposed to something that's just going to pass by.
And we know that we had an eclipse earlier this year. What is the difference between what we're experiencing today and what we saw back in January?
Sure. You know, this particular eclipse is special because it's the longest one in the entire century. And it also takes place, and this is part of why it's so long-lasting, at the moon's furthest position from us. So the moon's orbit is mostly circular, but it does get a little bit further and a little bit closer to Earth at different points. So right now it's far away, as far as it's going to get from Earth, and that's why it's lasting so long.
All right, Dr. Wakowicz, stay with us, too, because we want to come back to you. We want to bring in Dr. Hakeem Alusei, astrophysicist, space science education lead at NASA. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. I see you've got the image of the lunar eclipse, the blood moon happening right next to you. Help clear through some of the confusion here, because we hear about the lunar eclipse. We hear terms like the blood moon, the super moon, the full moon. There's the buck moon, the thunder moon. These are all things that are real names that we're picking up. But if you can kind of clarify some of this to explain to our viewers what exactly is playing out before them today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This moon is a blood moon. Anytime there is a lunar eclipse, which happens during the time when the moon is normally full, then we call that a blood moon because the moon appears red. Now, when there's a supermoon like we had in January, that's when the moon is at its closest point to Earth. So if you look at the moon's orbit around the Earth, it's not a perfect circle with the Earth in the center. It's what we call an ellipse, and so the Earth is off to one side. And what that means is sometimes the moon is closer to the Earth, sometimes it's farther away. We're catching this one when the moon is farther away. But what's really also cool about this is that if you look at the Earth's shadow as it goes out into space, there's one cone that gets smaller and there's another cone that gets bigger. So the cone that gets bigger is if you were standing on the moon, you'd see a partial eclipse. The cone that gets smaller is when you get a total lunar eclipse. And the thing that's happening with this one that also helps to make it so long lasting is that it's a central eclipse. And that means that the moon is going right through the center of Earth's shadow. So if you look at that darkest part of the shadow that is called the Umbra, it can go across an edge, it can go somewhere between the center and the edge, or it can go right through the center. And this one is going really close to right through the center. So it's longer, it's darker, and you can say it's bloodier.
Great. Of course, that image, that blood moon image that we've been showing, we've already been seeing the orange and the red hues coming up, reflecting on the surface of the moon as well. And I do want to say, I know some Americans might feel like, hey, look, we're getting gypped here. Like the only area in the world that isn't really going to be able to see much of this. But I want to ask you about another event that is happening in the sky. So people still might want to go out at night, bring out their telescopes, because Mars, right, is simultaneously and coincidentally closer and more visible than it's been in a long time, right?
That's right. So what us astronomers would say is that Mars is in opposition. So just like the sun, the earth, and the moon line up during a full moon, now we have, on this night, we have the sun, the earth, the moon, and the Mars lined up. Now, Mars is tens of millions of miles away, but in essence, you have what we call a full Mars. And so Mars is at its closest point it's going to be to Earth in about 2 years. So even though here in the Western Hemisphere, we're not going to see the total solar eclipse, we can see a beautiful Mars in our night sky. And the moon won't be eclipsed when we see it, but the moon and Mars are going to be very close to each other in the sky, only 5 degrees apart. So that's about, the moon is half a degree, so that's about 10 times the moon size away from Mars.
Fantastic. Doctor, stay with us. We'll come back to you in a little bit. First, though, I just want to mention to our viewers that lunar eclipse, that moon you were seeing right there, that's an image from Johannesburg. Again, we're bringing you these images from all around the globe. We have feeds from different news networks and NASA as well, but there you see a beautiful shot, clear sky from Johannesburg. We want to go to London as well. Our Julia McFarlane is there watching all of this unfold. Julia, I know that they had some bad weather where you are. Are you able to actually see the moon at this moment?
Well, yeah, Whit, I just heard you say that you guys over in America are feeling a little shortchanged not being able to see this gorgeous moon, but you know what, your friends on this side of the pond, we're with you as well, because this is the sky in London right now, and this is extraordinary because the UK has had a heat wave for weeks. It has been clear, cloudless skies. Some parts of the UK haven't seen rain for 50 days. And of course, this historic lunar eclipse, the longest of the century. And you know what happens? Well, of course, the sky gets covered in clouds. So no, we can't see it. But we are hoping for a little gap in the clouds, as we've still got a couple minutes left before it's going to start showing here. So I think actually a lot of people don't really know that it's happening. There's some people out here celebrating the Friday and embracing the weekend. But today is the first day that it has rained here in almost 50 days. And the satellite images of the UK show these islands turning yellow. Very well-known parts of London, the parks, everything's turning yellow. And so today, the first time that the rain is falling from the sky, and so that's what people are talking about here. And I don't know if you can see, just over my shoulder, we're on the River Thames in central London. And there are just these boats which are actually moored on ground, and there's grass growing around them, and they should really be in the water. And that's just how dry it's been here. It's unheard of.
All right, Julia McFarlane, we always love the shot from London. We'll stand by. Again, there's plenty of time. You're still a few minutes away from sunset happening, and we are still some time away from the Totality, the beginning of the Totality, which is expected to last, again, about 100 minutes, which is extraordinary, a once-in-a-century opportunity. Let's get more on the weather situation, though. Our Mel Griffin can walk us through. Mel, we know that people are watching this event all across the globe. What are the best places to view it and the worst places?
Thanks, Whit. And like you said, a once-in-a-century event, but, you know, the weather has to cooperate. And Mother Nature, well, sometimes she has a mind of her own in these kind of situations. So as we saw in London, that, I think, is the worst spot out of pretty much all of where our correspondents are for viewing. You can see it right here. This is satellite imagery. So the brighter the colors are, that's where we're either seeing rain or the heaviest and most overcast clouds. And you see that right over London. Next few hours, there is going to be showers in the area. Overcast, considerably cloudy. There could be some breaks, and that's what we're really hoping for within the time frame that they are able to see the eclipse. Berlin, another place where there are some clouds, but breaks are expected. There could be some spots in the city with good visibility, but if you're standing in that wrong location that just happens to be right under where a cloud is, that's when you're going to miss it. Moscow, another spot. Look at those bright colors on the satellite. Not rain necessarily here in Moscow, but those are overcast skies, and they're expected to stay that way for most of the eclipse. So we looked here. That's where we're seeing some of the worst viewing areas. Let's go down to Rome. Rome here, you see some patchy clouds, but for the most part, mostly clear skies for Rome. So anyone trying to view the eclipse there, I think is looking good. And same with Cairo. A couple of high clouds. We do have the pollution possible, but Cairo is looking good, and they will actually be coming clearer over the next few hours. So looking great for visibility in Cairo. And we're going to end over here in Hong Kong. We have this mess here in Asia, but Hong Kong over here near the coast. Not as many clouds there. It looks like they'll have some pretty good viewing areas for the most part, but there are still some clouds in the area. So like I said, it really just depends on where you're standing in a spot where there is partly cloudy skies. Either you're going to be under a cloud or you're going to be in an area where it's a little bit clearer and the visibility is better.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that.
I mean, we have some good spots, have some bad spots.
Exactly. That's what it's a once in a century event. You got to just hope that you're in a place without a cloud at that moment. Mel Griffin, thank you. We appreciate it. Speaking of Rome, we're going to head there in just a second. Our Clark Benson. First, I wanted to mention, though, you've been seeing at the bottom of your screen, we've been getting comments from viewers who are watching. Also, you can ask us questions, and we'll put those questions to our experts during this broadcast. Use the hashtag #AskABCNews. Hashtag #AskABCNews. If you send us a question, we'll try to ask our experts here and get an answer for you. But again, here's a look at that blood moon, the total lunar eclipse. Right now, it's still in the partial phase, hasn't quite entered totality just yet, but still the images are gorgeous. You can see the Earth's shadow there casting over the disk of the moon, and what's happening is the sun's light is then bending through the Earth's atmosphere, and in that process the atmosphere filters out basically the blue light that comes through the sun, and instead you get that orange reddish glow and a kind of an eerie look cast on the disk of the moon right there in the sky. Beautiful. Let's go to Rome. As I mentioned, our Clark Benson's there watching everything, and our forecaster Mel Griffin says that the weather is actually looking pretty good there. How's the view from Rome?
Buonasera da Roma, but I'm afraid.
And again, as we go around the world, again, we're gonna live pictures will come in and out, but I think he's right back with us. Clark Benson, we lost you for a second. Tell us about Rome. What's happening?
Buonasera, Whit from Rome. Unfortunately, the heat and the clouds tonight, we're not seeing it yet either. It's a beautiful night. We're on the top of the Gianicolo Hill, which is one of the 7 hills of Rome. There have been viewing parties across the city tonight, and I'm going to switch the camera here so you can see how many people have come out tonight just at this one location. There are hundreds of people who've come out hoping to have a chance to glimpse it, but unfortunately we're still not seeing it yet. We're hoping that we'll see it in the next half an hour or so, but there were lots of people here. Over here there was a family couple just celebrating their wedding here, American couple here in Rome, who came up tonight with their wedding party to see it. We've got night, and in the background you can see the skyline of Rome, and all across the city people are hoping to get a glimpse, but at the moment, as you can see, nothing for here. Whit?
All part of the experience. You just have to watch and wait, but there's still time. Clark Benson in Rome. We'll check back in with you a little later on. I do want to go back to our Dr. Lucienne Wakowicz to get a little bit more information about where we stand right now in this process. Doctor, I know that to separate from a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse, I had the great experience of watching the Great American Solar Eclipse almost a year ago from Madras, Oregon. At that time, we remembered as the partial eclipse took place and the shadow started to come into play, it almost took a bite out of the sun. How is that different from the partial eclipse with the moon? As the shadow comes in from the Earth, does it cut off part of the moon? Could that be explained why maybe some of these places aren't able to see it yet?
Absolutely. So the moon's shadow is very diffuse. So it has a part called the penumbra and then a part called the umbra, which means the dark part and the less dark part, or vice versa. So, one of the things that I think makes seeing a lunar eclipse sort of fun is that you don't really know before you see it what it's going to look like. Sure, we know that you can get that orangey or even deep red glow, but sometimes lunar eclipses look quite dark and you can actually just see a very dark shadow and you don't necessarily see that red.
And I actually was looking at some of the NASA feeds earlier as it was in this partial phase, and it looked like that. There was a big shadow that was cast over it. You weren't seeing the orange-red, but some of these live images we're getting in here do have that orange-reddish glow, and it's a beautiful picture. I do want to ask you, Doctor, some of the questions that we're getting repeatedly from our viewers on social media asking, why can't we see it in the U.S.? People feeling a little shortchanged in this process. What's going on here? If you can explain that a little further for us.
Sure. Well, to see a lunar eclipse, you have to really be able to see the moon at the precise moment that it sweeps through the Earth's shadow. So, we were very lucky here in North America to be treated to the wonderful solar eclipse last year. But in this particular case, that span of couple of hours where the moon is passing through the Earth's shadow is happening when the moon is only visible from essentially the other side of the globe through East Africa and the Middle East and throughout Europe. So alas, we're not able to see the lunar eclipse from here, except, of course, via ABC. And, at least tonight people can go out and be treated to a wonderful view of bright Mars in the sky.
Exactly. We were talking about that. I want to bring back our Dr. Hakeem Olusei as well, who's been standing by in Washington, D.C., walking us through this process. Doctor, if you can tell us, you've had these great graphics next to you and the live image of the moon. If you could tell us again kind of where we are in this eclipse phase right now. It's still a partial eclipse. How far away are we from totality?
Well, if you look at the shape of the Earth's moon, and one thing to keep in mind, the Earth's shadow, one thing to keep in mind is how far away the moon is from the Earth. Because in the graphics, the moon looks like it's really close. But if you take the distance from Earth's center to the Earth's outer edge, the radius of the Earth, the moon is over 60 Earth radii away from the Earth. So the moon is very far away, and the shadow extends very deep into space. So what's happening is that there is the central area that we call the umbra, and then there's the area around it that we call the penumbra. So if you're standing on the moon and you're looking at the sun, then when the moon passes into Earth's penumbra shadow, that's when you begin to get a bite taken out of the sun from the moon's perspective. That's the partial eclipse. And so we talk in terms of contacts. So the moon will pass into the penumbra, but the penumbra is so wide that the moon will travel completely into the penumbra before it reaches the umbra. And then the inner edge touches the umbra, and then it spends some time in the umbra traveling from one side to the other, because the Earth's shadow is big in comparison to the moon. So we're just at the point now when totality begins, is when all of the moon is inside that inner edge of Earth's umbra. So we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there.
And again, just to clarify, Doctor, the umbra being the Earth's shadow cast on the moon, the penumbra being the Earth's partial shadow in this case, correct?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Okay, great. And again, forgive me as we're just walking everybody through the process, always trying to simplify things for people. My 6-year-old daughter explained to me that the moon doesn't shed its own light, that the light is reflected off of the sun. And I remember as a 6-year-old, thinking that what a great explanation that was. There's no light coming from the moon, it's all a reflection. So when you have the lunar eclipse, that's when you start to see these shadows in the umbra and the penumbra and the blood moon that we're dealing with today.
historically is that, there's this question of did people know the Earth was round? And one way that people thought the Earth was round was that no matter when there was a lunar eclipse, the shadow of the Earth on the moon, they'd always see that curve. So actually, most people thought that the Earth was round throughout ancient times. But we're at a time today, of course, where some people think it's flat. It's not.
It's not, and we are seeing evidence of that today. Doctor, thanks so much. We want to go back to Hong Kong. Our correspondent Matt Gutman is out there. There's been a crowd gathering. People have the telescopes. They've got the cameras. They're in place. Matt, you had some bad weather and what you call light pollution. What are you seeing now?
Listen, I wouldn't say it's bad weather, Whit. This is weather. It's in Hong Kong, so you expect rain. But the sky, and I'm going to ask Carson, my cameraman, just to approach a little bit. I mean, the sky is relatively clear, but this is one of the most densely populated cities in the world. Lots of high-rises, lots of neon. Right over there, that tall building you see, that is the International Finance Center. By the way, Batman jumped off of that building in The Dark Knight Rises, so you might recognize it. And just above it, if you just follow that tower and look straight up, there's a little puff of cloud, and that is where the moon used to be. So we, being on the other side of the world, are in the Umbra. And the moon has been obscured for about 20-25 minutes so far. Instead of seeing the blood red, we saw more of like a gray smudge. But listen, I'll take it. I think everybody here is pretty excited about it. And as everybody's been mentioning throughout this broadcast, the beauty of this particular lunar eclipse is that it lasts so very long, which is why all my young friends here, my high school enthusiasts, and astrophysicists and astronomers, look how excited they are. They're watching. You see it? No. It came back. The moon came back. This is a very exciting moment. Everybody, sort of. What do you guys see in the binoculars? Tell me. They're poking their buddy there who's in the...
Just a cloud.
Just a cloud. Okay. False alarm, just a cloud. But we're still waiting, and these guys are going to be here until morning, until dawn, which is only a few hours away, to actually see something. One other thing that I have a question about. If, as your daughter mentioned, that beautiful 6-year-old, it's right, the moon is just a rock orbiting the Earth. It doesn't emit any light. So when we see the red of the moon during a full lunar eclipse, is that a reflection off of the light of the Earth, or is that residual light coming around? How does that happen?
Matt,
you might know.
I'm raising my hand in the studio here. Raising my hand. Can I answer that? I think I can take a swing. I can take a swing. So the way this was explained to me by our experts here and others as we were reading into this and preparing is you have the moon. Obviously, the Earth is in between the sun and the moon. And what happens is because the Earth is blocking the sun's light heading towards the moon, right? As you mentioned, the moon only reflects the sun's light.
I'm with you so far.
So if the Earth is in its way, you don't have that direct blue light that can hit the moon. Instead, the light is kind of bending around the Earth. And so because of that, as the light moves through the Earth's atmosphere, it filters out naturally some of the blue light that's associated with it. So instead, the light that still makes its way through after bending around the Earth is that orange reddish light, and that's why you get this glow. It's not as bright, but you get that eerie orange glow. So that's how it's been explained to me. We'll check back in with our scientists to make sure I got it right.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's not just a pretty face. Whit Johnson, everyone.
Oh, come on. My mother was a physical geographer with a PhD, so if I got that one wrong, she'd be very upset with me. Yep.
You should hold on, everybody at home. You should hear Whit talk about earthquakes. That is something impressive.
We'll get in that. That'll be our next digital ABC News Live special for sure. All right, Matt Gutman, thank you so much. We'll check back in with you a little bit later on. In the meantime, again, we want to tell you that we're bringing in these images right now. You're getting this gorgeous look right now. I think, checking with our producers, is this still the shot from Johannesburg? Unclear, but again, we have images coming in from NASA, from different news feeds around the globe, and you can see this is exactly what we're talking about here. When they call this the once-in-a-century total lunar eclipse blood moon, this is what you're seeing right now. That is the blood moon. It's reflecting that reddish-orange color, again, as the light from the sun bends its way around the Earth and then reflects off of the moon, and then this is what you're seeing. It's a gorgeous look, and what makes this such a significant moment and why they're calling it a once-in-a-century lunar eclipse is the fact that totality is expected to last about 100 minutes. 100 minutes. That's an hour and about 42 minutes is what we're predicting here at ABC News with help from some of our scientists. An hour and 42 minutes in totality. Now, for many of you who have watched or seen eclipses in the past, I remember I was talking to Matt there about the Great American Solar Eclipse that happened in August of 2017. I had a great experience able to watch that with my family. Totality in that eclipse was just a couple minutes. It was 2 minutes. You had to wear the special glasses as it moved into totality, and then you could only remove your glasses for a couple of minutes as we watched that happen. This is different. You can watch this total lunar eclipse with the naked eye, and you can see all of this, people watching this around the globe. Unfortunately, here in the United States, we're one of the only areas in North America not able to see it, and that's because of one simple reason. It's daylight. And in the daylight, it's hard to see the moon. And it's especially hard to see a moon that has the Earth's shadow cast over it. But take a look at this image right now. You can actually see, I don't know if that's clouds that we're seeing moving in between, the camera lens and the moon. Let's see if we can bring back one of our experts. And we'll go back to Dr. Hakeem Olusei, who's in Washington, D.C., watching this. Doctor, I don't know if you can see this image right now of the blood moon. What are we seeing? Are those clouds that we're seeing move across the disk of the moon?
Most likely it's clouds, unless there's something happening on the ground in front of the camera. It looks really ominous, right? But
it sure does.
It's really innocent. It's clouds. But I wanted to add on to your discussion about the why the moon appears red and how the light gets filtered out, because it's a really cool physical process that we physicists call Rayleigh scattering. So the light has a little electric and magnetic field associated with it, and they're vibrating. And so what happens is when the light hits the particles in the air, they vibrate at the frequency the light is vibrating, and then the matter absorbs it, vibrates at that frequency, and then re-emits it, still vibrating at the same frequency, and it works way stronger for blue light than it does for red light. So the blue light gets absorbed and re-kicked out back in any random direction, so most of it doesn't keep going the way it came from. It gets sent all different ways. That's why, for example, if you're in space, you have to look at the sun to see light. Everywhere else, it's black. But if you're in Earth's atmosphere, you look up at the sky, and even though the sun is not in that direction, you see blue light coming to you. And that's the blue light that's been absorbed and re-emitted. But the red light isn't affected as much, and most of it passes through, and that's the process by which the blue light gets filtered out and the red light goes through. It's called Rayleigh scattering.
So it sounds like you're giving me full credit for my answer, minus a couple of bonus points, right, in terms of accuracy?
Full credit. And you could have gotten bonus points if you knew the name Rayleigh Scattering.
And say that again, Rayleigh Scattering.
That's right.
Rayleigh Scattering. I'll have to add that to the list of all of my solar eclipse terminology, the Bailey's beads, prominences, diamond ring, all that fun stuff. All right, Doctor.
It's an atmospheric phenomenon.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Again, want to go back to these images, and you're seeing some of the comments that we're posting from our viewers below, watching from Algeria. Saw somebody telling us that they could see it from Zimbabwe. This picture, I'm being told right now, is actually coming from a shot out of Israel. So again, around the globe, cameras, telescopes, NASA, obviously stargazers and news agencies have their cameras and telescopes fixated on the moon right now to bring you these images. This one, again, coming to us all the way from Israel. And I can see this comment here. I can see clear eclipse from Greece. So again, and we've got correspondents and cameras all over the globe as well watching all of this. Let's go back to, Dr. Lucienne Wakowicz, who's been watching this in Washington. And Doctor, if my clock is correct, I believe we're still a few minutes away from totality. Is that right?
That should be about right.
And what do we expect? We're seeing these beautiful images already. When you think of a blood moon and you think of the orange, the reddish glow, we're already seeing that. How will things change as it enters totality in different parts of the world?
Well, I'll add to what Dr. Olusei just mentioned, which is that we have this wonderful process that you can appreciate on a daily basis, Rayleigh scattering, that leads to that reddish, orangish color on the moon. And as he mentioned, the sky is actually blue to our appearance here on Earth because that blue light gets scattered down to the surface of Earth. So Rayleigh scattering is not only the reason that we have a reddish lunar eclipse, it's also why we have a blue sky. Now, the best thing about that, and this is probably my favorite eclipse fact, is that that means that when we see a reddish orangish moon like that, what we're really seeing is all of the light from all of the sunsets on Earth. Everywhere on the edge of the globe where the sun is passing through that atmosphere and the sky would be red for the locals there, those sunsets are all shining on the moon. So as the moon moves into totality, it will not only get darker, but in many places that color will start to deepen from anywhere between a rusty orange to a very deep red moon. So I know blood moon sounds sort of spooky almost, but I really think it's a romantic moon. It's all the lights of all the Earth's sunsets.
Love that. All the sunsets all bottled up into one gorgeous blood moon. I do want to ask, we got a great question from a viewer that I want to bring to you, Doctor. This viewer asked us, again, you can use the hashtag AskABCNews. We'll bring these questions to you and some answers. How is it that if the moon is farther away, the eclipse lasts longer? Wouldn't it be longer if it was closer and in more of the shadow? It's a very good question.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it comes down to how the moon orbits and really how all planetary bodies and moons orbit. So while the moon's orbit is close to being a circle, it's not quite a circle. It's a little bit of an ellipse or a little distorted circle. So right now, the moon is at what we call apogee, so you can add that to your vocabulary grab bag. It's the point at its orbit where it's furthest away, and that means that it moves more slowly than it does when it's a little bit closer to Earth, or what we call perigee. And that's just because gravity is a very, very strong function of distance. So when the moon is further away, it's a little bit slower, and it gives us more chance to have it pass through the shadow of the Earth.
Great. So I got apogee, I've got Rayleigh scattering. We're getting some new buzzwords. Doctor, thank you so much. Great explanation. We appreciate it. This picture, I'm being told again right now from our producer, is coming to us from Abu Dhabi. So again, we had Johannesburg, we had Israel. Now this live picture coming in from Abu Dhabi. And as our scientists were telling us, some of those images you see sort of movement across the surface of the moon, likely clouds in between the camera lens and the moon itself. Let's go back to Hong Kong. Our Matt Gutman has a great crowd, a mixed crowd of young people watching this play out. What are you seeing there? Do you finally have a shot of the moon? You've been, getting blocked out by the clouds.
Well, there's been a little bit of a sort of a hazy thing going on, but now, for the first time in about 5 minutes ago, we actually started to see it. And it's pretty cool. And we also can see Mars. It's okay. We'll go back to the famous Batman building. That biggest building right up there, and if you probably can't see it, but if you look just above it, right above its spire, you can see Mars to the left of the moon and a little bit lower than it, and you can see the moon, and it really is looking blood red. Now, my friend Huey here from AstroLink, he took this picture. That's what he's seeing. So, I mean, we are in full totality here, and obviously it's going to last for about 100 minutes longer. Carson's focusing, and okay, that worked. So it's pretty cool, and people here are excited. Are you excited? I mean, they were like hunched over the cameras when they started to see it. The skies cleared, and everybody got really excited. Robert, my producer's laughing at me. I'm very excited. When we saw that solar eclipse, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of stuff, a lot of natural phenomenon. That was the coolest thing, and this is still pretty exciting. What do you guys think?
It's cool. You can still kind of see it, so it's really nice.
Yeah, you can really see it. I mean, it was a gray smudge for so long. It was obscured by clouds, and when the clouds parted and finally you got to see it, people were really excited. It's funny that there's this human phenomenon of excitement at seeing something that is so unusual, and I guess anytime you get to see something that happens once a century, it's really cool. All right, look, they're pumping fists.
It's red. It's a red moon. It's like something straight out of a movie.
It's like something straight out of a movie. That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's just very, very unusual and really cool to behold here in Hong Kong. And again, it is after 4 in the morning. Lots of people still out here, many more than we expected. And we're going to hunker down here, and we're going to see this thing through it. So stay with us.
There we go. The blood moon rising. I can hear John Fogerty writing a song right now about it. By the way, I do have to mention what you talked about when I saw the solar eclipse, the total solar eclipse. It was truly an emotional experience for me. I had never felt anything like that. When it hit totality, it's like for that moment, you realize just how insignificant we are as individual human beings on this earth that is just a small thing in this great universe. It was a really special, emotional thing for me. I don't know about you. It sounds like it was for you as well, Matt.
Oh, you saw me kind of get very excited a few moments ago. I was, 10 times more jazzed up. I was basically euphoric.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It shows the insignificance of humans, but also the beauty that we can see on this earth. And also there was the communality of it, the fact that there were thousands of people packed in this Oregon field watching it together like we are here. There's something really special about that. But you did mention that you are an aficionado of eclipses. Your mother is a scientist. What kind of science does she do exactly?
She's a physical geographer, has her PhD in physical geography. So so it's like things that take place on the surface of the Earth, the tectonic plates and things like that. But she is an eclipse chaser and has tried to drag me around the Earth to see them. And she finally got me to one, and I'm glad she did.
And as I recall, she didn't just drag you; she dragged the whole entire family.
It was 30 plus
I
people.
believe in the 30 plus people, and I believe in the depths of the archives of ABC News, there might be a little bit of a clip of this, and I hope the folks in New York can roll this video because it's definitely worth seeing.
Oh wow!
And there it goes.
Oh! Helmet streamer. Prominences. We've got prominences. Look at that at the top.
Oh, we got you, Whit.
Yeah, you got me all right. There's my daughter screaming. My play-by-play I find more and more annoying every time I hear it. But it was so cool. So cool.
Glasses on. Bailey's Beans.
There we go. That was 30 plus family members there in Madras on a bluff watching that play out. It was very cool. Matt Gutman in Hong Kong, thank you so much. We'll stand
fantastic.
by.
Thank you,
we'll come
Always
back
a
to you.
pleasure.
Absolutely, we appreciate it. We're getting these images coming in, these live images of the moon from different parts of the world. We had Abu Dhabi, we had Israel. This one, I believe also, this was coming, I think, from Abu Dhabi as well. So again, the beautiful image right there. Let's go back to London. Julia McFarlane was standing by. It was about to hit sunset just as we're entering totality there. Julia, you've had bad weather. Any clearing? Any shot of the moon yet?
Oh, Whit, it's so disappointing. No, I mean, as you can see, if you can see behind me, the sort of just the top of that bridge there, just the peak of those two little red lights, that is the spot where the moon should be and where we would be seeing all this beautiful blood moon, as you guys have all been describing so well. And everything was in place. It's the last Friday of the month for everyone here. It's payday. It's the start of the weekend. And what can I say? It's full cloud cover. But a lot of people here in the UK, I think, are actually just glad to see some rain at last, some parched rain. Parts of England are going to be having a hosepipe ban if it continues like this next week. So I think a lot of disappointments. A lot of the newspapers this morning all came with sort of supplements of, how to, pre-planned, of course, supplements, how to see the blood moon, where to go, can you see it with your naked eye, can you use binoculars, all this kind of stuff, and the best spots around the UK to see it, because of course it is a Friday. A lot of people would have been able to take some time and see it properly, but sadly the British weather, that famous British weather, is once again getting in the way of things, unfortunately.
Exactly. All the good weather was saved up for the royal wedding, I suppose. But there's still time. Again, you still got about 100 minutes.
It rained.
What's that?
Yeah, the end of May was the last time it rained in some parts of the UK. May 29th, I think, is some parts of England is the last time that they saw proper rainfall. So you say that we had nice weather for the royal wedding, but that's the last time we had a showerfall since then. So.
Well, it's payday Friday, and there's still plenty of time, so maybe folks will be able to stumble upon the blood moon later tonight. Julia McFarlane in London, thank you so much. Want to go back to Washington, D.C., and our Dr. Hakeem Olusei, who's been watching and following all of this for us. Doctor, again, I think we're just minutes away from when most parts of the world are going to hit totality with all of this. What changes do we expect to see in some of the live images we're getting?
Yeah, well, it's not going to be that drastic, right? You're going to see a really dark blood moon. But one distinction to make between a total lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse is that the moon shadow on the Earth doesn't cover the entire Earth globe, right? It only falls on a tiny spot. So you have to be on that path of totality. But for the case of the lunar eclipse, the Earth shadow covers the entire moon, which means that the entire Earth hemisphere that's facing away from the sun gets to see the total solar eclipse. So the entire other hemisphere opposite us, we're on the bright side, they're on the dark side, they get to see it. And again, these graphics are a little misleading because the moon is about, take this distance and multiply it by 65. That's how far away the moon really is. So the Earth's shadow is really stretching very far into the distance and falling over the moon and completely covering it.
And Doctor, again, we're calling this a once-in-a-century total lunar eclipse, lasting in totality about an hour and 42 minutes. How much longer is that really from other blood moons that we've seen in the past?
It can really be fast because if you think about the Earth's shadow, the Umbra, if the moon just passes through the edge of it, and if the moon is really close to Earth, so when the moon is closer to the Earth, it moves more quickly along its orbit, and when it's farther away, it moves more slowly. So what we have in this case is the moon is going through the central part of Earth's shadow, almost right through the center, and the moon is very far away. So it's going through the greatest distance, and it's taking the most amount of time to do it. And in other cases, it could be really fast or even just a partial lunar eclipse. So we're really lucky to be here at this time to see it. And of course, for us here in the Western Hemisphere, we only get to see it via technology.
All right, Dr. Olusei, thank you so much. Let's bring in our Dr. Lucianne Wakowicz, who's also in D.C., been walking us through all of this. Again, Doctor, some people here in the U.S. a little frustrated that we don't get this great visual of that blood moon. Is there something, though, if they were to look into the sky this evening, would they be able to see anything? What would they see if they looked towards the moon tonight?
Absolutely. This is actually a wonderful time for being able to look up and see stuff. First of all, you know, even though you can't see the lunar eclipse tonight, most people don't realize that the moon itself, through, you know, even a moderately good pair of binoculars, is actually a stunning sight to look at. You can explore all those things that look like just dark and bright patches from Earth. All of those craters come out in wonderful detail. If you have even moderate binoculars, you might be able to see some of the terrain along the edge of the moon, and that's something that you can really see at any time. Now, what's special about tonight is that right now Mars is in what's called opposition, which means that much like we have the Sun, the Earth, and the Moon all lined up, we also have the Sun and the Earth and Mars all lined up. So at the moment, Mars is not only a full Mars in the sky, but also it happens to be at the closest approach that it will be to Earth for a very long time. So right now it is a mere 36 million miles away. But that does mean that it will be really bright in the sky. So you should be able to look over in the direction of the moon tonight and see Mars as what appears to be sort of a rusty-colored but very bright star-looking thing.
So still might be worth your time to go outside this evening, grab the telescope or some binoculars and look towards the stars. Sounds like it.
Absolutely.
All right, fantastic. And by the way, we should also mention that this, you know, the blood moon, another one is coming and that you will be able to see from the United States, a total lunar eclipse visible in the U.S., January 21st, 2019. So next year, early next year, mark your calendars. That's according to NASA. So again, these do happen, but the significance of this one being in totality for an hour and 42 minutes. It's just the length of time that we're going to see this. Still, we're getting some great images coming in. Let's actually head out to, we haven't been to Moscow yet. So let's go out to Moscow. Our Tanya Stukalova is out there live in Moscow. Tanya, I know that there was some weather moving through that area, but what can you see? What's happening where you are?
Good evening from Moscow's Red Square. We are standing near the Red Square, and this time we are watching not a military parade or another political event. We are watching a once in a lifetime lunar eclipse, blood moon. Unfortunately, the weather in Moscow is not that great for the observation, and the sky is completely covered with the clouds, but like we can't see the moon at all. But still, there are a lot of people at the Red Square, and they all came here hoping to watch the moon and to see this unique, beautiful natural phenomenon. But unfortunately, they can't see it now. But still, despite this late hour, the Red Square is packed with people, and these are like people from Moscow, Muscovites, or like tourists from all over the Russia for spending their summer vacations here, or and foreign tourists as well here. We met a young couple. They are Andrei and Varvara, and they came here to watch the moon. And how you are enjoying your time here?
Hi, my name is Andrew, and I came to this beautiful and fascinating city to see these beautiful landscapes, the beautiful buildings, and the most important thing that I wanted to see is the blood moon, because this is really interesting, this is really beautiful.
And so we've seen a load of pictures of the blood moon, and we're really excited to see it. Unfortunately, today the weather is not as well as we hoped it to be, but we're still very excited and hopeful that we can see the moon, take pictures of it, because this kind of thing happens only one time in a century, and it's worth living to see that kind of beautiful phenomenon. So we're still hoping to see the blood moon today.
All right, Tanya, thank you so much. Love their enthusiasm, and that point you made in the beginning, just right. This is that moment where people around the world, despite all of our differences, everything that's going on, they can look up to the sky, look up to the stars, and see this fantastic celestial event that's playing out before our very eyes. Thank you so much. Live from Moscow, we appreciate it. I do want to go back to Dr. Lucian Wakowicz, who's been following all of this. And Doctor, again, as we're going around the world, we're seeing all these different images. If you could just give us some final thoughts on the significance of this moment. We're calling it a once-in-a-century lunar eclipse. Why is that?
Well, it's a once-in-a-century lunar eclipse just because of this long duration of the totality, the time at which the moon is in the Earth's shadow. But, you know, I think one of the most wonderful things about eclipses is that it links us not only to everyone all over the globe, so because of this broadcast here, of course, on the side of the Earth where we can't see it, but everyone on the side of the Earth who is able to see the moon is all looking up at that same moon in the sky. And it also links us throughout history. You know, humans have looked up at the night sky and made observations and wondered about what's out there for a very, very long time, our whole history. And eclipses are one of the things that really link us together, not only through space, but through time as well.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much. I want to go back to London one more time. Again, the sun is setting there. It's Friday night. It's payday. Our Julia McFarland is out there, and unfortunately, the weather hasn't been great, but the sun I can see is setting. It's getting darker. Any luck? Is it starting to peek through at all, Julia?
Well, I wish I had some great news. Sadly, the moon still is a bit shy. It's behind that thick, thick cloud. The first time, actually, that we have seen rain in the UK for weeks now, and it's just such bad luck that this on the last Friday of the month, everyone's payday, you know, the weekend ahead of us, people have been able to come out of the office early, and yet they can't see the moon, this beautiful blood moon. But, you know, it's been almost 50 days without rain in some parts of the UK, and so when the skies opened today and the heavens opened and rain came down across a parched United Kingdom, which has really turned yellow. Some incredible satellite images of various parts of the UK. There is just no green grass left on these islands anymore. So while I think a lot of people will have been disappointed not to see the lunar eclipse today, I think a lot of people are actually just quite glad that their lawns might get a bit of rainwater now.
That's all right. Can't complain with that. Julia McFarland live in London for us. Once again, to all of our viewers watching around the world, these images you're seeing, live images coming from cameras and telescopes and news outlets around the globe, watching this total lunar eclipse, which is being called a once-in-a-century event because of the length of time. Totality lasting about an hour and 42 minutes. Incredible images. If you want to see more of this event, you can follow everything on abcnews.com, or you can download our ABC News app for all of the alerts associated with this event and other breaking news. In the meantime, I'm Whit Johnson. This is ABC News Live. Let's leave you with some of the highlights of the broadcast.
It is pretty remarkable to see the entirety of it slowly disappear, and we did see with that telltale, diamond ring kind of thing, just at the very end as the penumbra goes to the Umbra. Pumping fists.
It's red. It's a red moon. It's like something straight out of a movie.
It's like something straight out of a movie. That's right. I was still very pleasantly surprised at the sheer number of people who are out here trying to take this in.